In this last example for 4.5 day 1, we are going to solve another equation related to trigonometry, but we're going to do that using the calculator instead. This is going to be a situation where the ratios aren't really nice. They're not our special ratios like we're used to with the 30-60-90s or the 45-45-90s. So when that happens, we're going to use the graphing calculator to put this in. Now, really what we're doing is we're just going to put each side of the equation into one of our y equals on the calculator. So here's what I'm going to have set up in my calculator. I'm going to go there and put in cosecant. The only way to do this on your calculator is 1 over sine. And then for y2, I'm going to put negative 1.5. All right, so I've got the two things in there, and then what we do is we're going to look at the graph and see where they intersect. Now, it's important to note that this is the place where we're going to be looking, pi to 3 pi over 2. Now, if we're talking about the unit circle, that is pi to 3 pi over 2. That's in the third quadrant, but we're looking at a graph on two-dimensional. We're not looking at a unit circle, we're looking at a graph of these things, and so it's going to be kind of laid out flat horizontally there. So when we graph this, one thing before you hit the graph button is just to make sure that you are in the correct mode. Radian mode is where we want to be. You can know that because we have pi's going on right here, so that tells you that it's radian mode. Then I will graph it. Now, if your graph doesn't quite look like mine, here's what I'd like you to do. There is a special zoom for this one. There's zoom trig. Now, if you select zoom trig, it makes a nice graph for you where the left-hand side goes to negative 2 pi and the right-hand side is all the way to positive 2 pi. So it's kind of like we're used to using as far as our windows of graphs. So that's a really helpful window to take a look at. Now, we're going to try to find out where these two cross, where the cosecant and the horizontal line cross. Now, you might notice there are a couple of vertical lines in here. That's the graph's attempt at doing vertical asymptotes. Those don't actually exist, so you don't need to worry about those intersections. But it looks like, from what I see right here, it appears that there are actually 4 spots that it intersects. So the trouble is, well, how do you pick which one? It should only have one answer, right? Yeah, it should only have one answer. That's where this comes in right here. We need to take a look at where is this chunk between pi and 3 pi over 2 existing. Now, since this is 0 to 2 pi, we could just look at it from this is 0 to pi over 2, this is pi over 2 to pi to 3 pi over 2, and 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi, if you're good at looking at those labels and knowing what's going on there. But I have a shortcut, a cheat for you to use if you want to, not really a cheat, but if you go to your window and input for the x's, these values, that's going to actually make it exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to put for the x minimum, pi, so second pi. Then for the x maximum, notice it did turn into a decimal, that's okay. And then for the x max, I'm going to go 3 pi divided by 2. And so now when I go back to my graph, they'll only have the part here that we want. And so you can see that those are intersecting. So then our last step in this case is just to go second trace, intersect, and now just get that cursor as close as we can. First curve, second curve, and a guess. And it looks like our intersection here, the solution that we want to use, is that x is approximately 3.87. Now that's 3.87 radians. It's not degrees, and so just keep that in mind. Even though it doesn't have a pi, that is in terms of radians. If you wanted to see what that was like in terms of degrees, you could always, of course, convert that by multiplying by 180 over pi. then you could figure out what it is in degrees if you're curious about that. But this is the answer that we're looking for when we use the calculator. There's a lot to that process, but essentially it is graph each one of them, y equals on your calculator, see where they intersect. The tough part is just making sure you've got the right spot, and that's where this X domain comes in. So hopefully that will get you there on calculator business, but as always, please make sure to ask questions, especially on calculator stuff, because those are ones that we need to work out before you get the test underway.